listen, I think that assuming we are operating under traditional political physics, everything Ed said is correct. I mean, the Trump is already very unpopular. The voters that elected him have already started to wander from him. In the Economist YouGov poll, he's lost 42 points in job approval with 18 to 29-year-olds, kind of a big number. And he's losing ground with Hispanics and independents. So he's already degraded and eroded. And what is amazing is that this bill is really deeply unpopular. And, you have to give Democrats a little bit of credit here that, this has been their central messaging focus over the last 3 to 4 months. And, we turned something, and made something that is his signature achievement already into one of the most unpopular pieces of legislation in modern history. So, in theory, as Ed said, it's unlikely that he's going to get much gain politically. I mean, he may get it because he just had a win and the government looks like it's working. But, in traditional political physics, he's in bad shape. The Republicans are in bad shape. They just had two of their most important swing district incumbents decline to run again this week. Those are the kinds of things that a party that loses, you see happen when people who are in critical races retire because they don't think they can survive the election in 2026. We're going to have some good candidates jump into the Senate races, I think, to give us a little bit of hope that maybe there's some possibility that we could take the Senate back next week. I think there's going to be some momentum on that. But I think the thing that where I'm at right now in listening to all this is that I think two things can be true simultaneously. Under traditional political physics, he's weak. This was a very unpopular bill. They're taking unbelievable risks. And all of that is all true. What is also true is that they're doing enormous harm to the country and that they're breaking things that are going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to repair. And that we have to somehow keep our spirits up as we watch this assault on the United States of America. And I will be honest with you that this week, this stuff kind of got to me in a deeper way than it has. And sometimes just the reporting the last 24 hours about us holding back weapons to Ukraine and Trump kind of serendipitously, like becoming pro Putin again and just this sort of obeyance that he has to Putin. It is shocking that this is where we are. It's shocking that, ICE is going to get more money than God. It's shocking that us vaporizing USAID is going to kill tens of millions of people around the country on purpose, making America a country that's committed mass murder, right? We're now living in a different country than we were living in a year ago. And I think we have to both, sort of be, wide-eyed about the carnage, the damage, the outrage, all of it, and not allow that to cause us to disengage and we have to keep fighting. I mean, I think the cost, we must at all, with everything we have to keep challenging him because the challenge has worked. He's a degraded political figure. Now, last point is on the information environment. His supporters don't know that because as G. Elliott Morris wrote in his Substack today, they are getting fed a steady stream of polls, dear leader polls, that are showing him wildly popular. And so in the right-wing ecosystem, they don't know that he's failing. They don't know that he's weak. They don't know that the country has rejected him, and so this ability for us to continue to fight the information war, to fight the traditional political war, to not lose heart in a time when we're just seeing so much wanton destruction, is, one of the great challenges that we have. Because in traditional political physics, the things that are happening are the things that we need to happen if we're going to have a really good election, right? And that we should be heartened by that. But man, between now and November of next year, this is going to be quite a battle.
Yeah, well, Mike, first of all, I'm heartened and a little worried that Simon and I seem to have had the same psychological breakdown this week. Um, um, but thinking the
Synchronizing.
exact, thinking the exact same thoughts. But that's not the first time that that's happened. But we do seem like to be in a race, right? On the one hand, Trump, unfettered, produces bad policies that alienate large numbers of voters and even get people who don't vote to vote. And we can circle back and talk about how applicable, inapplicable it is that Zoran Mamdani is the Democratic mayoral candidate in New York. But to me, what resonates about that is that the biggest voting group in that election were young voters, which just doesn't happen in elections. So that's significant of something. But it's a race, right? There's a race of the American people waking up and being alienated by this, and Trump being handed more and more power by the Congress, by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's decision, which we're kind of over because there's something crazy every day, but the Supreme Court's decision late last week to say, oh yeah, he can essentially do whatever he wants, and it has to percolate its way up through district courts and appeals courts till it gets to the Supreme Court, and we're not going to stop him when he does these things. It's going to have to go through all that. So essentially he can do anything in violation of the Constitution for 2 or 3 years probably, which is how much he's got left in his term of office. And he's going to have his funding of ICE will make it better funded than the US Marine Corps, which means that he's going to be able to impose a police presence everywhere, which could be very, much a tool of authoritarianism, and so on. So, on the one hand, democracy could work; on the other hand, it could die. And right now, sitting at the 249th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, we don't know which it is.
Yeah. That's the paradox we're stuck with right now. um, you know, Alligator Alcatraz, which is set up by the state of Florida, cost $450 million. If this bill passes, I believe I read it's $45 billion that's going to go to ICE,
Yes.
um, for more such centers and for more such detainings. So they can build 10 of these. They can build, who knows? Combined with state money, they might be able to build more of these. I'm sure there are other states running at Trump's request to build their equivalents of these and give them clever, funny names that Trump will like, so that Trump will come christen them and visit them. So
Nancy Mace has already requested one for South Carolina.
yeah, I'm somehow I'm not shocked that she's at the front of the queue. Um, but so this will go on. Uh, the Supreme Court will deliver more shocking decisions like it did last week. Obviously, we're now in a situation where it's very clear that the legislative and judicial branches have surrendered vast chunks of their constitutional authority and duty to the executive branch, which is one way to put it as we contemplate the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution to some extent. It's a shocking thing to see. The only break on it is elections, is the voice of the people. And yes, if I had to bet today, I'd say that the Democrats are going to win the House. The Senate's a reach. It's not. I would say it's not impossible, depending on how bad things get. But I would think the Democrats can probably take back the House. Although that's less a certain thing than I would have said 2 years ago or 4 years ago. So the average loss of an incumbent's party in a first midterm election, as you guys know, is 26 seats. That's going back to the 1930s. There just aren't 26 seats up for grabs anymore in the modern United States. There are 15 to 20 seats up for grabs. I guess there are about 15 Republicans who are. I mean, there are 60 seats that the Cook Political Report calls swing seats, but when you really get down to what really could change, the number is much smaller. Of course, the Democrats only need to win about 5, so but I think they'll recapture the House, but not by much. It will be enough, of course, to stop a bunch of the agenda. And if they use the subpoena power the way we all would want them to, they can make a lot of trouble. But you know, um, Trump will continue on. He'll still have the courts. He'll still have the judicial branch. He'll still have a lot of these executive orders. And it's it's going to be a democracy still has some power to stop this, uh, which is reassuring, but not as much as it ought to.
Yeah, well, I think, Ed, that's really, one of the core questions, which is how much power does it have? Let's say the Democrats win. That would stop legislation from going through. But here's the thing: legislation doesn't go through. This bill we're talking about is the only significant bill they've got, and most people believe that it will be the only major bill if it passes between now and the election next year. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has essentially said, do anything you want by executive order. Go ahead. Executive orders all have gained much more power in a world where they won't be challenged by the Congress and they can't be challenged by a lower court. They have to only be challenged by the Supreme Court. And, this has gotten the president of the United States to say at the ribbon cutting at our concentration camp in Florida yesterday, I'm thinking about deporting American citizens. We're thinking about denaturalizing American citizens. And he's not just talking about people who might have questionable immigration status in their past or be birthright citizens, which is an issue. But Pam Bondi, and here also talking about targeting political opponents, using the laws to target journalists. The level of authoritarianism in this country, I don't even think most people fully appreciate that this president is by far the most king-like head of state or head of government that we've had in the United States since George III, and by far the most powerful president that we've ever seen in this country. And he has said he wants to abuse his power. One final example of that: this morning, Wednesday morning, he tweeted out that he doesn't want the communist Mamdani to become mayor of New York, and that he holds all the cards and all the levers to stop it, which, of course, is not very democratic.